So there's a lot of flexibility on your end. I'm going to actually postpone this one because I want to make sure we get through. I know that a lot of you guys who were looking on the Schoology site, you saw there were like pretty colorful folders. So I created folders for a folder for math, a folder for history and science, and a folder for elementary. And I posted just a topic or two in each folder. So if you're a math person and you're like, yeah, this all sounds really good, but how is this going to work for math? I wanted you to see an example. So I will give you a chance at the end so that you can, and you'll have access to this, where you can poke around. Okay, let's see what this looks like in math. Let's see what this would look like for elementary kids. What kind of topics might they like? And then you can see some of those options. So the next part, and this is going to take audience participation, and I think Jason here was really excited to help me with this one. We want to focus on what strategies we can give students to help them say something substantial, right? I don't want to read a bunch of fluff online. I want it to be quality. And so they need to be taught how to do that, okay? And my husband, who, like I said, he's a history teacher, he and I read books out loud together every night. And he bought me this book because I'm a little bit bossy. I am an oldest child, and so I get to be bossy. And I love Tina Fey. Has anybody read this book? Yeah. Okay. So he's reading me this book from Tina Fey, and we get to this section. And as I'm listening, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is so right on for discussion. So I thought we were going to do a little popcorn reading in here. We'll get Jason a microphone, and he's going to run it around to anybody who is brave enough to raise their hand to read a little section. And so on the Facebook page, or you can put this directly into your computer, I have the page we're going to read, and we're going to read it out loud together. Is there anybody in here who does like popcorn reading, spontaneous reading with students? Nobody. Nope. Oh, yeah. Okay, now some of you do. Okay, so we're going to do that. So if you're excited, you'll just raise your hand. We'll run you a microphone. Even if your device doesn't have it, look on with someone else. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to get to this page where the actual excerpt from her book is, and then we're going to do this together. No, start off. We got plenty.
Tina Fey's Rules for Improvisation That Will Change Your Life and Reduce Belly Fat. The first rule for improvisation is agree. Always agree and say yes. When you're improvising, this means you're required to agree with whatever your partner has created. So if we're improvising and I say, freeze, I have a gun, and you say, that's not a gun, it's your finger, you're pointing your finger at me, our improvised scene has ground to a halt. But if I say, freeze, I have a gun, and you say, the gun I gave you for Christmas, you bastard, then we have started a scene because we have agreed that my finger is in fact a Christmas gun.
Now, obviously, in real life, you're not always going to agree with everything everyone says, but the rule of agreement reminds you to respect what your partner has created and to at least start from an open-minded place. Start with a yes and see where that takes you.
There we go. Perfect.
As an improviser, I always find it jarring when I meet someone in real life whose first answer, is no. No, we can't do that. No, that's not in the budget. No, I will not hold your hand for $1. What kind of way is that to live?
The second rule of improvisation is not to say yes, but yes and. You are supposed to agree and then add something of your own. If I start a scene with, I can't believe it's so hot in here, and you say, yeah, we're kind of in a standstill. But if I say, I can't believe it's so hot in here, and you say, what did you expect? We're in hell. Or if I say, I can't believe it's so hot in here, and you say, yes, this can't be good for the wax figures. Or if I say, I can't believe it's so hot in here, and you say, I told you we shouldn't have crawled into this dog's mouth. Now we're getting somewhere.
To me, yes and means don't be afraid to contribute. It's your responsibility to contribute. Always make sure you're adding something to the discussion. Your initiations are worthwhile.
The next rule is make statements. This is a positive way of saying don't ask questions all the time. If we're in a scene and I say, who are you? Where are we? What are we doing here? What's in the box? I'm putting pressure on you to come up with all the answers.
In other words, whatever the problem, be part of the solution. Don't just sit around raising questions and pointing out obstacles. We'll all work with that person. That person is a director. It's usually the same person around the office who say things like, there's no calories in it if you eat it standing up. And I felt menace when Terry raised her voice.
Make statements also applies to us women. Speak in statements instead of apologetic questions. No one wants to go to a doctor who says, I'm going to be your surgeon. I'm here to talk to you about your procedure. I was first in my class at Johns Hopkins, so make statements with your actions and your voice.
Instead of saying, where are we? Make a statement like, here we are in Spain, Dracula. Okay, here we are in Spain, Dracula. May seem like a terrible start to a scene, but this leads us to the best rule. There are no mistakes, only opportunities. If I start a scene as what I think is very clearly a cop riding a bicycle, but you think I'm a hamster in a hamster's wheel, guess what? Now I'm a hamster in a hamster's wheel. I'm not going to stop everything to explain that it was really supposed to be a bike. Who knows? Maybe I'll end up being a police hamster who's being put on a hamster's wheel. Duty because I'm too much of a loose cannon in the field. In improv, there are no mistakes, only beautiful, happy accidents. And many of the world's greatest discoveries have been by accident. I mean, look at the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup or Botox.
Thank
Improv
you.
will not reduce belly fat.
Sorry, got excited. But thank you so much, you guys, for reading with me. I appreciate the volunteers. I know I put you on the spot. But when I heard that, maybe it's because I'm so focused on teaching in a blended and I love online discussions, but I thought, oh my gosh, I want to read this with my students because I think that there are things in here that speak to the online environment. When she says to really respect what your peers have created, right? You want students to understand your peer, they sat down, they wrote whatever they wrote. You need to respect that, not only by reading it and taking your time, but thoughtfully responding to that person's idea. Don't rush through a response. I love her yes and. Of course, we're not always going to agree, but I love the idea that you're always building on what other people have said. And when you think about online discussions, students will log on and they'll read what other people have said, and many of the things that they initially thought they would contribute will already have been said. And then you know what happens? They have to think a little bit harder about what they want to say. And that drives higher order thinking. They have to evaluate what their peers said, think critically about it, so that they can really build and push the conversation forward. Don't be afraid to contribute. I want kids to feel confident. This is your environment. You're driving the discussion. Don't be afraid to contribute. Your ideas are worthwhile. Make statements, right? So when they're replying, we want to give them lots of strategies so that they don't just ask questions all the time, because that does mean that the person, ideally, that they're asking questions of is answering those questions. Instead, how do you respectfully disagree? How do you offer a different perspective? How do you build on ideas shared? Be part of the solution. Problem solve. If they can't figure something out, that's why we have them all together online so that they can work together to draw some conclusions, to figure things out. I think there's a lot of value in a math class getting kids talking about problems and ways to solve problems that might not be the conventional way to solve a problem. And there are no mistakes. Yeah, I know that online discussions are scary. We're scared of what kids will say. But if they make a mistake, they make a mistake. We deal with them, and we deal with it, and we teach them how to do it better so that they don't make those mistakes outside of our class. So for time, I'm going to just share with you kind of my thoughts on teaching students to say something substantial. And this is a really important piece because anybody who's taken an online course, at the very beginning of online courses, everybody's excited, the class is new, and the engagement online is very strong. But then after like the second week of class, the engagement starts to dip and the quality goes down, and it's less exciting to go online and have those conversations. Instead, it becomes a chore, something else kids have to do. And I don't want them to feel that way about online discussions. I want them to have the strategy so they can keep the conversation moving. I want them to really think about what they're saying. I want them to really understand the topic. And if they're really taking the time to respond thoughtfully, they have to understand what's being discussed. And ultimately, those substantive, high-quality engagements online keep the conversations interesting so kids want to come back. I can see how many times my kids log in. It is unbelievable how many times some of these kids log into our Schoology site because they want to see, did somebody answer my question? Did so-and-so reply to my comment? There's this social engagement piece that's very, very important for them. So I teach them with specific strategies. So I tell them, okay, if you're replying to somebody and you feel like everything you wanted to talk about this topic has been said, and you have a new idea for another direction it could go, present a new question, a question that redirects the conversation, a question that broadens the conversation or refines the conversation. Feel free to drive the conversation in whatever direction is really interesting for you. Share personal experiences. The more they share experiences and connect what they're learning to their lives, the more meaningful that becomes and the more personalized the online space becomes. And they learn a lot about each other that they might not know if this student doesn't talk in class ever. Think outside the box. I tell my kids, we build a safe space for a reason. We build a safe space so that we can disagree and have it be productive. There's a lot of value in having kids expose each other to different perspectives because teenagers, they think they're right about everything, right? They see the world through their eyes and their eyes only. If they can read what everybody else says about a topic, an issue, a debate, all of a sudden they start to consider different perspectives. And in terms of learning, that is one of the most valuable components of going online with kids. Ask for questions. If somebody said something and you don't understand it, don't be afraid to ask them to clarify. What did you mean by this? Or I'm not following. Could you restate this statement? Make connections. Can they connect what you're talking about in history to what they're learning about in science? A book they read, a movie they saw, a conversation they had with a parent. And ultimately, if they comment thoughtfully, I'm a happy camper, right? I just want them to think about the topic, be respectful, and comment thoughtfully.